Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So in this video, we are going to be discussing how politics destroyed the economy, which I find to be a very interesting topic. I was talking yesterday about how the manufacturing of the United States had moved out into foreign production, mainly China, and how this move to foreign production was really caused by the increase in luxuries here in the United States. So ultimately, we raised our standard of living, we started importing more in foreign production, we exported our domestic manufacturing, and now we are sitting in a position in which that we are reliant upon foreign production in order to maintain our standard of living. And now if you go through the comments section of that particular video that I did yesterday, it is full of blame. Full of blame. Like, they point the finger in every single direction and they know exactly what the cause of it was, and mainly it was political environment, right? And this is the way that most people feel about it. Like, literally everybody I know kind of says it almost the same way, that if the politics weren't the way it was, then we wouldn't have had this destroyed economy. Everything would be awesome. You know, if we had done things like lowered taxes and regulations, or didn't put this kind of burden upon the business owners, or maybe if we actually taxed the rich more and kind of stifle their greed or something of that nature. Like, there's all these excuses out there on what it is that politics could have done in order to somehow save or make the economy better. But very rarely does anybody want to take on the actual real reasons behind it, and that is the move into luxuries. Our rise in our standard of living made it too expensive to produce here. The foreign productions then became more competitive than what we could produce ourselves, and that was really what drove the domestic manufacturers out of this nation. Right? It didn't have to do with regulations. It didn't have to do with any of that stuff. It is an excuse. It was present. You could see it, right? But that's not the reasonings that caused it. It was the move into luxuries. And now, I know a lot of you are sick of this essay, Cantillon's essay on economic theory, but it's telling. It tells us the story that happened many times throughout history, and it is very similar to what it is that the United States had experienced itself. Listen, so long as Romans' luxury, which did not begin until after the defeat of these particular kings, anyway, so long as Romans' luxury came from the product of land and labor of all the vast estates of their dominion, the circulation of money only increased instead of decreasing. Now think about that. When the United States was moving into the Industrial Revolution and started really increasing the amount of manufacturing that was taking place, like, the United States was known for producing the world's stuff. Like, we were the major producer of everything out there. All the quality things that everybody was buying around the world, we were producing it, and we were selling it to ourselves along with the rest of the world. So as long as the circulation of money was within the domestic nation here, within our own land, it only increased instead of decreasing. This was what really brought in the higher standard of living. I mean, you think about it, this country once had the ability to have a full-time job provide enough income for an entire family. All the kids, wife, cars, college, vacation, retirement, all that stuff off of one single income. Well, that was when we were the world's producers of stuff, right? The public, and this is Cantillon's essay, again, that I'm reading from, and if you're not familiar with Cantillon's essay, I mean, this thing was written hundreds of years ago. He talks about gold and silver and horses and wagons, and so things aren't exactly the same, but they're very telling, right? So the public was in possession of all the gold, silver, and copper mines in the empire. They had gold mines of Asia, Macedonia, and the rich mines, both gold and silver, of Spain and other countries. They had several mints where gold and silver copper coins were struck. In Rome, the consumption of all the goods and merchandise drawn from their vast provinces did not diminish the circulation of money any more than the pictures, statues, and jewelry themselves. Although wealthy landlords spent excessive amounts on their feast and paid 15,000 ounces of silver for a single fish, all that did not diminish the quantity of money circulating within Rome. Right? All the money was still there. Everything was cool. It's because they were producing and selling things within their own nation. They weren't importing anything yet. Given the provinces made tributes regularly, not to mention the money brought in by lenders and by governors with their extortions. The amounts annually extracted from the mines increased the circulation of Rome during Augustus, who reigned. However, this is where it gets important, right? Because this is the exact same experience, right? However, luxury was already on a very great scale, and there was much eagerness not only for the curiosities produced in the empire, but also for jewels from India, pepper and spices, and all the rarities of Arabia. Silks, which were not made in the empire, began to be in demand there. Nevertheless, the money drawn from all the mines still exceeded the sums sent out of the empire to buy all these things. Okay? So even during that time, they were moving into luxuries. They had all this money, and they were actually buying foreign production, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to change anything, right? It was still the mines exceeded the sums that were sent out, right? So they were still pulling more money out of the mines than they were actually sending out of the nation. However, under Tiberius, money became scarce when that empire collected 2.7 billion sesterces in his treasury. To restore an abundant circulation, he only needed to borrow 300 million on mortgages less than 1 year, and it was then that the abundance of money in circulation was at the highest in Rome, and the wind of luxury kept on blowing. You see what happened there? They were getting into a position in which that they were going to start running out of money, but he didn't. He started borrowing, right? And the wind of luxury kept going. The historian Pliny estimated that in his time, the empire exported at least 100 million sesterces. I'm not sure what that is, sesterces, annually. I guess that was the form of money they had. I probably should have looked that up. This was more than was drawn from the mines, right? So now you got to this point where they were exporting 100 million of these things, which was more than drawn from the mine. So now they're exporting their money before they can draw as much in. Okay? Under Trajan, land prices fell by 1/3 or more. Right? This is where the deflation started kicking in because they were sending their money out. Right? There was less circulation of it. According to the young Pliny, the money continued to decrease until the time of the Emperor Septimus Severus. Money was then so scarce in Rome that the emperor collected enormous quantities of wheat, being unable to collect enough tax money from his enterprise. Thus, the Roman Empire declined through the loss of money before losing any of its estates. That is what luxury brought about, and what it will always bring about in similar circumstances. See, this is like it's that move into luxuries, raising that standard of living. Once that standard of living is increased and the prices of everything is moved up because everybody's consumption of these new items that are coming out, or these new purchases that are coming from the new money coming in, right? And that increase the standard of living, the prices move up. People don't want to spend that money on higher prices. That's where the foreign production starts to come in. And this is something that is talked about within this essay many times. And if you go and you look throughout history, you can see many examples of this exact same thing. Now, what I find very interesting about it is that if you go and you put the political view on it, there is all kinds of blame. You can point your finger in all kinds of directions and say, this is what did it, this is what did it. But yet very few people will take into consideration that this is something that was been in progression for literally hundreds of years, moving into this exact scenario. I mean, you think about it, back when the United States, back in the 40s, 50s, did they think about what it is that we were going to be experiencing today? Like, do you think the politicians back then say, okay, once we get all the gold out of circulation and we're sitting on a nothing but 100 fiat, currency system, and we trick the entire world into doing this, then we'll be able to bring down the New World Order kind of concept on everybody? Do you think this is what they were thinking about, like, in 1940? I mean, those people are all dead and gone. There isn't not a single person who came up with that concept who is still alive today to see it through. Like, why would they do that? Right? Now, I understand the New World Order concept. I have studied a lot of elitist comment, like the elitist thing coming down, the World Economic Forum type of stuff, all that stuff. Like, I mean, I've read up on a lot of that thing. And in fact, I dove so deep into it at one point in my life that it actually caused a major depression within my life, knowing exactly how bad these people are, right? Like, I could see it. I could see them in their manipulative ways and the things that they were doing. What got me is how did they get into this position? How is it that they have this position available to them? Like, what is it that was taking place within this world that people were so accepting of the idea that it allowed them to do what it is that they are doing? That's what the question that I had, right? And people say, well, they're just, people were just dumb and they just accepted it or something like that. I don't think so. Really, I think this is just the way that it's going to flow. It's the way that the economies work throughout history. When you have a productive nation, an industrious nation, if you have a warring, one that can fight battles really well, you are going to have a new increase of money coming into that nation. When you have an increase of money coming into the nation, the people are going to want to use that money to elevate their life. There is no doubt in my mind that that would be the case. I don't care if you're an individual who just got a better job, got a raise, just won the lottery. When you get new money in, you don't want to take that new money and say like, oh, wow, I'm not going to enjoy this. In fact, I'm just going to set it right over there and pretend that it doesn't exist. Like, that doesn't happen. Like, that is not a concept that happens, right? And now I find that very interesting that a lot of times when you see people with new money coming in and they actually take the conscious decision to not increase their standard of living, but to pay off all their debts, to then use that money to invest and then not change a single aspect of their entire life. No new cars, no new clothes, no new house, none of that stuff. How many times do you actually see people do that? And when you do, what happens? They actually do quite well for themselves when something like that happens. But hardly anybody does. When they get the new money and they're like, oh man, I want something new. I want something nice for myself. I earned this. Whatever. That's the move into luxuries. And most people do that, right? Most people end up moving into that luxurious position when they get the new money. So if you think about like, when you have the United States sitting in a position back in like the 70s, when we knew that the manufacturing of our stuff was no longer going to be able to provide the new money coming in to sustain our way of life. Now, this is something that you can blame on politics. You can say, oh, they offshored all our jobs because the corporations are greedy bastards. All right, well, that's one way to look at it. Now, do you want them to not make a profit? Like, are they here on this planet to make sure that you have a decent life? Is that their job? Is that what they were working hard? Is that what they used their skills, their assets, their resources, and everything that they had in order to elevate themselves to the highest possible position in their life? They did that so they could benefit you? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like, everybody does everything for themselves, including the corporations. They are greedy bastards because that's the way they need to be in order to elevate themselves up to the higher level. If they didn't do that, you wouldn't have a place to work. Right? I mean, this is what's really astonishing to me, is that people are talking about how they don't earn enough money at their 9-to-5 job. No kidding. No kidding. Like, the rich, greedy corporations are preventing your wages from going up. Wow. Is that a surprise? Is that a new thing that is happening? Or is that the way that it's always been throughout entire history? Even this guy talks about how the people will only work hard enough to sustain themselves and never really put any more effort into it. Yeah, I see it every day, right? 9-to-5 jobs don't cut it anymore. Yeah, I know, right? 9-to-5 jobs never have cut it. You have always had to have more income. Right? I mean, it's not hard to make it in this country. You can make it with a 9-to-5 job, but if you want to make it good, you're going to have to put in a hell of a lot more effort, right? All right, 312 people. My goodness. I'm sorry, I just went off on that for so long, in 14 minutes. But I just wanted to make sure I get these points out and, to try and reiterate it, that the idea that a politician can even exist right? Like, I mean, even a politician, even having a position to be a politician, has to come after the fact that you have been an industrious person first. Like, the politicians can't come in and say, okay, well, we're, stupid, crazy, weird, rich, elitist politicians, and we're going to create an environment in which that everybody's going to work real hard, produce a lot, and we're going to tax the piss out of that. It doesn't work like that. You have to work real hard, use your skills to become prosperous, move yourself into an elevated position, and then that is the position in which that their power exists, that a politician can then come in and start raining their forces upon you. Right? Until then, like, if there was a bunch of people who didn't work and were sitting down there on the ground, there would be nothing to politic over. You actually have to be doing something for them to attempt to govern it. And the fact is that we had a very powerful people here who really understood what it was to be manufacturers. We were the world's producers of the greatest stuff in the world. You think about it, even now, America makes really good, high quality things. Right? This nation was the greatest nation at one time when it came to producing things. We don't do it like that anymore. Right? And it's not something that is a political environment that you can blame it on. It's the Cantillon effect. It was the dive into luxuries that then started moving people out of like saving and producing into debt and luxuries, right? Now you can say, hey, politics did this. Well, politics didn't force you to take out debts and buy luxurious items. That was a conscious choice that you made. Now, whether or not it was like a good decision, that's up to you, right? But politics didn't force that into you, right? You decided to do it. All right, let's cruise down here. So many comments. All right, 74 likes. I don't know, you guys liking this video? Hit that like button if you're enjoying this video. All right, I gave up on politics a long time ago. Me too, man. It really improved my happiness to focus on my life and the things I could control rather than politics. Absolutely, because there's nothing... See, that's what really drives me nuts about it, is I used to be really involved in politics. Like, there was a time when I knew every congressperson's name. I knew all the bills, I knew things that they were talking about. I had major opinions of all this stuff, and I was very much a blamer. Like, the world sucks because these guys do this. And I did that for years and years and years, and I never once ever got an answer. I never increased my happiness. I never increased my way of life. I was sitting very depressed, very miserable, and very much confident in the idea that it was somebody else's fault why I was there. The moment that I gave it up, I was like, that's it, I'm done. Like, and really it was the Republican Party that did it to me. They screwed up by blackballing Ron Paul out of the debates and discussions and all that other stuff. When I saw what they were doing, I said, that's it, I'm done. I was never fond of the Democratic Party, and now I'm really not fond of the Republican Party either. So since those are the only two political affiliations that anybody ever wants to discuss, I'm out. I'm done. Like, I don't want to play this game with you guys, And so I just simply don't. And I eliminated all that stuff out of my life. And if it didn't have something to do with the money itself, the creation of money, monetary policy, the financial markets, international trade, or some sort of like that, I didn't care. I didn't care about gun laws. I didn't care about abortion. I didn't care about any of that stuff. I mean, I have a personal view on those things, but I didn't care to discuss it with people. All right? What I do care to discuss with people is the monetary policies, the actions coming from the Federal Reserve, because understanding that is going to be able to give you the position, or give you the ability to position yourself in the most appropriate fashion for you. Nobody knows what I need in my life. Right? Even as much as I discuss it out here on YouTube, nobody knows what it is that I need in my life. And there is no way that a politician is going to step up and say, hey, my plan is going to work for you. Right? And my plan is going to work just for you. It's customized for Simon. Right? I mean, it doesn't work like that. I have to position myself according to what it is that's going to be taking place out there. And, since I started doing that, I found that my investments have increased, my savings have increased, my lifestyle has increased, everything has increased because I've gotten politics completely out of my life. And I don't choose my course of actions based upon a political view. Because then politics do interfere with your life, because everything that you are making decisions on have that incorporated into it. all your subconscious, decisions, whether or not you're buying the house, the car, starting the business, taking out the loans, whatever it is that you're doing, you involve this political view to it. And it's, at many times, it is not anything of any kind of substance or reality or helpful in any way. Like, I don't see it, All right, moving on. The problem with politics is that it puts you on a team, yeah? And once you're part of the team, you're not seeing reality for what it is. That's right. And almost always, like, I listen to people talk politics, and they always blame the other position. If they thought like me, everything would be great. Right? I mean, this is what I find humorous about it. It was just like, well, yeah, I mean, if everybody thought like me, everything would be great too. Like, I mean, but nobody thinks like you, and nobody's going to think like that person or that person, right? Nobody thinks the same way. And that's why it's very confusing to be in the political environment and try to figure out what it is that you need to do for your life, because you're blaming this other person for not making the right decisions or not thinking like you do. It's just like, okay, well, how's that supposed to work? Major change coming into Ireland this June in local elections. We have people have woken up to politicians. If they had really woken up to politicians, then politicians would be very, very scared that the people had done giving up on them. They're like, you're not important in my life anymore. I'm not going to, looking directly into a politician's eyes and say, I'm sorry, you are no longer important in my life anymore. I don't care what you do. You're not going to make anything that's going to make any difference in my life. Okay? So go ahead and fish out all your, spit out all your promises. I don't care. It ain't going to work for me. And as far as them doing the bad job, you're not going to do any better. And so that's the way that I feel about it. And if they think that they could actually do something that is going to be like a benefit for me, then they would probably start following the Constitution. Right? That's the way I feel about it. If these elected officials would stay within the confines of the Constitution, we would not have seen a lot of the stuff that we are experiencing. A lot of it would have been a hell of a lot worse. All right? I'm not trying to say that it would have been a good thing. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is that we were given constitutional rights to keep the government in bay, and nobody keeps the government in check anymore. I don't even know why I would even try to involve myself in that. Right? They do not have my best interest in mind. So I don't care which one of them you vote for. They don't mean anything to me. Politics have real consequences. Obviously, you should make pragmatic financial decisions, but people's lives are severely affected by political policies. Really? Like, which one affected me the most? Like, I was sitting completely broke for years and years and years, being very politically minded. And I finally just said, that's it. I'm not going to follow him anymore. I've never listened to anything Biden has ever said. Like, I don't know any, like, I couldn't repeat one single sentence that guy has ever said. Never, didn't involve it. Don't care. I don't care what he talks about. I don't care about what any of these congressmen talk about, or women, right? I don't care about what the Congress has to say, or senators, or anybody else. That isn't important to me, okay? Because I've never found anything or any of their decisions making any difference in my life. I mean, is there small little changes, stimulus checks, because they voted that in? Oh, sure. But the overall general condition of my life is 100% me, not anything that they have done. It was up to me to make the decisions based on the environment that I am now viewing. Yeah? And that's really what it comes down to. I mean, I can't think of anything that they have, like any decision that was made that directly affected me in a way that I thought, man, that political decision was very impactful to the point that it changed the course of my life. I can't think of a single one, right? And considering the last few years, I can't think of anything, like anything that's made any difference in the way I was going to make decisions on my life. Housing will not crash. As soon as I buy a home, it will crash. That's the way I felt too. All right, they shut down a pipeline job I was on, lost my contract over the political bullshit. Okay, well, that's true. Right? Now, granted, it might have been the politics that did it, or was the environment that created the situation in which the politics were now involved. See, I had like another guy say something like this. If the politicians had invested back into this nation the infrastructure to create cheaper or more efficient, how was it, like, if the United States, if the politicians had invested into the production of electricity, then there would be this supply-demand imbalance where the supply of electricity would be more than the demand and the price would fall, and therefore the production of the things that we make in this country would have less input cost. Right? Now, this was what somebody had said. And now, if you kind of think about that in that step, yeah, okay, that somewhat makes sense. If you have cheaper electricity or even energy in general, then that cheaper energy would be a less input cost going into the production of the things here in the United States, right? So that's one aspect of it. The problem with this theory is, right? The problem is that the idea that you have taken taxpayer money, invested it into the production of electricity, overproducing the electricity, which then drops the price. Now you have to constantly tax and subsidize the electricity because it's not a profitable business, right? If you overproduce the electricity and the price falls because you have more product than you have demand for it, the people who are producing the electricity are not profitable because there's an oversupply. Okay? So now, in order to keep that oversupply with the low-priced electricity, it will be constant taxing of the people. Burden the taxpayer in order to have cheap electricity, in order to continue the manufacturing or the idea of manufacturing here. So now you have to have a political environment included into the system in order to maintain the cheaper electricity, to have the idea that you're going to be manufacturing, which is supposed to be a better position for the people to be in, even though they're being taxed more. You see where I'm kind of getting at? The reason why this doesn't work is because manufacturing is going to flow to the cheapest place they possibly can do it. Land cost, labor cost, energy cost, all this stuff is incorporated into the idea. Now, yeah, if they weren't greedy bastards, then sure, I guess they can maintain where they are at, take less profits on their corporation, and then say, hey, we're doing great for the people out there. I mean, I'm sacrificing all my skills, all my corporation, everything that I have going on here so that the people can be benefited from this idea. Like, is there anybody in the world who does that? I mean, are you going to really go and bust your ass at your job, then go do another job so that you can buy a house, buy a new car, and then have an abundance of savings to just say, hey, I'm going to take my savings and go down and just hand it away to the homeless? Like, why would you do that? So, but yet that same logic is supposed to be applied to the corporations out there for being greedy bastards, and they're supposed to take all their money and just go and hand it out there to everybody else because, they can afford it, right? Well, so can the rich person who has an excess of savings. They can just go down there and just hand all that money to the homeless. That doesn't make any sense. Nobody's going to do that. Right? How far are we into this? All right, guys. Wow, I'm really going off today. Moving on, we got 419 people watching. Wow, 130 likes. If you're enjoying this video, go hit that like button, guys. All right, when I worked in the natural gas industry, the EPA would routinely come out to our plant and endlessly critique things until we would just shut the equipment. And if things malfunctioned. We have incentivized a certain kind of business. This is the decision. Greetings from Maine. Wrong. Okay. And it's funny because somebody else mentioned it was just like, we sent our manufacturers, we made the conscious decisions, our corporations took manufacturers and sent them over to China so that they could be greedy bastards, right? And somebody said that. And then in that same comment, I saw, but they don't see any, you don't see any Chinese companies coming to the United States. That's bull. You absolutely do. The largest pork producer for almost a decade, Smithfield, was owned by China, by a Chinese company. 5 major paper mills here in the United States, if I remember right, it was 5, is owned by like 7 dragons. Right? They're like the 5th largest paper producer in the world, and they have 5 mills here in the United States. Right? This is China. I mean, those are just 2 major ones that I know about. Like, if I went and did some research, I could probably find a bunch more. So no, that's not true. Right? China does invest manufacturing back here in the United States, because putting those mills here in the United States is going to be more efficient and cheaper to get the product to the United States than it is to ship it overseas. Yeah. And it's the same thing like with these Canadian, it's the same story that the Canadian mills, right? Here, British Columbia is getting hammered hard from their forest industry. It's been devastated. It's not coming back to the heyday that it once was for another 30 years. Those major mills up there in the British Columbia area, we're talking Interfor and Canfor and who else? I mean, there's a bunch of them up there, right? All these guys all are setting up shop down in the southern part of the United States. In fact, I think Interfor has more mills operating in the United States than they have operating in Canada, right? More mills operating in the United States than in Canada. And it's a Canadian-owned mill company. Because it's cheaper to operate here, and where you got to fish where the fish are. There's no more, the British Columbia area got nailed. It's hammered. But down in the south, there's a glut of pine trees that they started 20 years ago, all these plantations, and now there's just a flood of timber down there. See, that was another reason why like people didn't understand how come lumber prices were moving up, but they couldn't get the log prices for it. You'd think that it would be the same. If lumber prices move up, then the demand for logs would go up and the high price for logs would be there as well. But that wasn't the case because there was a glut of logs. There's a glut of timber in this country. And a lot of people don't realize that. 427 likes, or 27 people with 155 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button when you're coming in. All right, man, so many comments are just flying through here. Capitalism concentrates capital. Capitalism, or corporatism is capitalism. I don't believe capitalism exists in this country. Capitalism, if you had capitalism in this nation, then you would find people rising and falling on their own merits. But if you have something that has a systemically important bank, right, too big to fail, bailouts, stimulus checks, none of that shit exists in a capitalist society. That is the exact opposite of capitalism. So when somebody says, hey, I don't like the way the economy is operating, I'm just going to blame capitalism, you're blaming something that doesn't exist. Good try. Right? It just goes to show that you're more blaming politics again for the situation that we are in, and you blame capitalism, but capitalism doesn't even exist. It's like you can't blame something that doesn't exist, right? And now there is forms of it, right? You can say, no, there's a bit of capitalism inside of it. Yeah, there's things that have the appearance of capitalism. There's also a lot of things that have the appearance of socialism and communism, all right? There's all these aspects that are now occurring within the economy, but you can pick out the ones you like the least and then give it a label. That's capitalism that I don't like. Oh, that's the socialist that I don't like. That's the whatever I don't like. And knowing that we just don't truly live in any one of those types of environments. That's what's scary about it, is that blaming capitalism is literally like blaming the boogeyman. It was just like something that doesn't really even be there. It's just something in your imagination. And so if you find all the evidence of how it is that you can blame capitalism for the situation that we are now in, you're looking at delusional ideas. Okay? And they all might make sense. They all no, these are legit concerns that are happening here. But again, capitalism doesn't exist. And so what it is that you're blaming is your imagination. Yeah. All right. Wow, look at all these comments. My gosh. I blame commies. All right. There are laws written at the moment in order to deal with these problems, antitrust and tariffs. And those laws would not exist if we were not in the situation that we were in first, right? I mean, you can't make a law that tariffs imports or taxes the people if they weren't sitting in a position in which that it could happen. See, this is like, I mean, politics didn't create, right? They can only take. And so the people have created this for the politicians to then take from you. That's why I just don't trust them. I don't trust any of that stuff, you know? I don't trust that there is anybody that you can vote for that is going to come in and create a situation that's going to be better. It doesn't work like that because the political environment doesn't do it. The corporations write these laws. Yeah, they really do. And, you know, that's really in a way to secure their position so that nobody else can do what they can do. All right. Let me see. Where else are we? People don't want to work when government sends checks. I blame commies that want to live off the land. You were trained to blame the powerless. You know... No, you were trained to blame the politicians. Because if you didn't blame politicians, then you would be able to figure out who it was that was really doing this. Right? And then once you figure that part out, the whole system would fail. See, the system works because most people don't understand how it works. The moment that they figured it out, it would be over. Like Henry Ford figured that stuff out a long time ago. Right? What is that famous quote? It's better that the people don't understand the system, because if they did, there would be a revolution by morning. I totally believe that. Totally believe it, right? And I don't necessarily agree that it's better that the people don't know. I think the people should know, but I'd also agree that the whole thing would come to an end if they did. Right? And so the fact that it's clouded, the fact that every one of these people who walk by on the Riverwalk probably have no clue about what monetary policy is, right, is the reason why it still works. All right. When a handful of big corporations own all the companies, you end up with huge monopolies. Okay. Don't buy their shit. Don't buy it. Don't buy the cell phone. All right. Don't buy the new car. Don't buy new clothes. Don't buy stuff. Invest all your money into gold and silver. Take it out of the banking system. I mean, if you really have a problem with it, get out. Like I did it for years. I didn't carry a cell phone. I didn't use debit cards. I used cash, and I put, what little money I had, I put all my money into silver. Right? That's what I did. I showed up every day. I paid my income taxes, which I didn't even at the time. I didn't have to pay income tax because really I had child tax credit and made so little money that I actually was a benefit to file taxes because I actually got paid on that. Right? But ultimately, I got out. I was done. I'm like, I'm not involving myself in politics. I'm going to pay as little in taxes. I'm not going to buy anything new. I'm not going to put my money in the bank. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Right? And you know what? My life sucked. I didn't have nothing. I didn't have anything. And it wasn't a good position to be in. Capitalism is like a religion for some people. You can't question it. Yeah. Buy gold. They lobbied for 2 years for Fed Reserve Act. Yeah, Fed income is free to print fiat. A smartphone is now a staple of doing business. Hey, I agree. I used my cell phone once I finally did get it back. Like once I was just like, oh man, okay, now, like it was really Edward Snowden that did it. When Edward Snowden came out and says, okay, they're using your cell phone to track you, and everybody finally was believing it, I was like, yes, finally. Well, now I want a phone, right? Because I was protesting before. So now that I'm not protesting, the protest was over, I want a cell phone. As soon as I got a cell phone, I almost immediately started doing YouTube and built a YouTube channel off of the things that I had been thinking and my opinions and stuff like that. So like I used the cell phone and the technology to advance myself, but for years I wouldn't do it, you know? And you know what's funny is I did this all, like I hardly ever use a computer. I use a computer at work to do my, to do my orders and stuff like that. But when I'm at home, I don't use a computer. I mean, every once in a while I'll fire up this thing to download a speech or something, but that's it. like everything that I have ever done, all my communications, every YouTube video, all the stuff has all been done off of my cell phone. That's it. You will blame anything but the problem. Well, the problem exists within yourself. That's really where it comes down to, is this your own personal understanding of how it is and the decisions that you have made that led you up to this exact moment, right? We can blame politics for it. We can say, hey, man, I was raised differently and I don't understand what it is that these people are trying to do. Yeah, I mean, you're a victim of your circumstances, but you don't blame that, right? You overcome it. You overcome it by reading, by following, by understanding, by, getting into the things and the information that you need, of the things that you need, right? I mean, it's just, the way it's got to go. I trust that Vivek, who is that? Ramsawamy? Is a legit politician who can get us clear to the sustainable economy. Nope, can't happen. Politics always play a role in every aspect of our lives. Literally every concept is political. Well, good luck with that, bro. I mean, I hope you do well in your life, man. I got that stuff out and I started actually becoming prosperous. So good luck, man. People need to learn personal accountability. Absolutely, they do, Z-Core. They absolutely do. There's nothing you can do to change the environment. That's the problem. You can't change this. I don't care who you vote for, right? You're going to get Donald Trump in here, and he is not going to make your life any better, right? The things that he was doing think about it, man. I just don't even like getting into this part of things, right? But I just remember sitting there listening to candidate Trump, right? And he said, it's a big, fat, ugly bubble. And when the interest rates go up just a little bit, you're all going to see it come crashing down. And then during his administration, the big, fat, ugly bubble got bigger and fatter and uglier. And then it continued to get bigger and fatter and uglier. And here we are. We have the higher interest rates and it hasn't crashed. Sorry, Trump, you were completely fucking wrong. Right? And I don't mean to cuss like that, but damn, dude. Right? The Fed should be printing money? This is what Trump had for advice to the Fed? The Fed should be printing money, taking interest rates into negative territory. Germany is doing it right by having negative interest rates. This all came from Donald Trump. I don't trust that dude. I do not trust him. He's a politician just like everybody else is, right? But he's convinced a bunch of people that he's somehow like no. It's not, right? Remember, he was the one who put Jerome Powell in position. That's Donald Trump's fault, right? If there was a fault to be had, which I don't think is a fault, it's just the situation that we're in. But I don't trust that dude at all. Okay? I don't trust Biden, not enough, not even enough to take time out of my day to listen to what he has to say. I do not trust him enough to do that, right? And the things that I have heard come from Donald Trump, I don't appreciate. When he was a candidate, he did a great interview, very telling interview with Alex Jones. You remember Alex Jones? He told Alex Jones that he was going to be the #1 most surveilling president anybody has ever seen. I enjoy my privacy. Now, I understand that I come out here on YouTube and I expose myself in a lot of ways, but I keep my communications with my wife private. I use encrypted messaging app. You know what he said? Anybody who uses an encrypted messaging app is a potential terrorist. That's what Donald Trump had to say. So you know what I did? I went and downloaded every single encrypted messaging app that I could possibly find, and I started using them. Because I enjoy my privacy, and I don't find the accusation of being a potential terrorist by keeping my stuff private I don't have appreciation for that. Right? And then he goes on to tell Alex Jones that he's going to be the most warring president anybody has ever seen. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with war. I don't agree with murder and kill or any of that other stuff. Right? So to be the most warring president that anybody has ever seen, not that happened, but I'm saying the threat of it alone is not something that I appreciate. None of that stuff. I don't appreciate the Fed should be printing money and taking interest rates into negative territory. I don't appreciate surveillance. I don't appreciate the warring aspect of things, the violence. I don't appreciate any of that stuff. Right? So I don't find him to be a good dude. Remember, I mean, he wanted to declare a state of emergency down on the Mexican border. I knew guys who were going to take their AR-15s down there to go protect our border. From what? What? You think that, I mean, that's going to, you want to take your time, your effort, your energy to go protect the border? Man, you know, what a way to rile people up. All right. You're right about the Trump is just a clown. I mean, I wouldn't call him a clown. I don't call Biden a clown, right? These people are not important enough for me to even call them names. It's just like, that's, it, they just, what they are, literally, this is what it is. We are here. Then you have politicians sitting right above them. Then you got the elite above it, right? As long as we are communicating with the politics and not to the people who are actually above it, then we are interacting with nothing more than a communication. That's it. Not the real deal. The real is above them, right? They put those politics to shield themselves from us. They can't come and talk to the people personally. They can't do it, right? So they have this political environment that separates them from us. And we interact with that as if they are the ones who are in control of things. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. All right, I gotta go, guys. This was a lot of fun hanging out here. We got 481 people watching. At this point, I want Trump to win just to watch the reaction. You earned a little bit more of my respect today, brother. Finally, someone who isn't just a sheep. No, I'm far from it. Like I am so far removed from a lot of this stuff that, like, at this point, I don't even care if nobody agrees with anything that I have to say. This is exactly the way I see it, right? I'm not gonna bend or anything for anybody out there when it comes to my beliefs and my views, right? I say stuff that I can't even find anybody else out there talking about. Like, I had literally come up with this stuff on my own. All right. There's people out there who might talk similar things, but I really feel that I have taken a very unique position, and I don't care if anybody agrees with me. Like, I just don't care, you know? All right. Trump for president or war or both? Huh? All right. Paying taxes is kind of sheepish. Some people, okay. Every 0.5% is $5 billion of additional annual interest on the debt. All right, you'll own nothing and be happy. Just accept it. Trump didn't start any wars. No, he didn't. But the threat of it, right, wasn't something, I mean, hey, maybe it was just the threat so that he could seem like he's a big bully kind of guy. Whatever. I don't appreciate it. I don't appreciate any of that stuff, right? Now, whether it needs to happen or doesn't in order to keep things, well, that's the political view that I'm not really interested in following. Right? I'm just not into it. And so, anyhow. Okay, you guys are awesome. The easier to blame politicians than your own bad decisions. That's absolutely right. Okay, guys, this was a lot of fun. We got 440 people with 215 likes. Go hit that like button and help the YouTube algorithm pick up this video and spread it around for more people to join in. All right, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.